of small businesses across India, the decisions made in Delhi can have a very real impact on their everyday lives. A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 14, co-powered by Star Health Insurance. I'm Ritwika Gupta, coming to you straight from Pride Plaza Hotel in New Delhi, and tonight we are bringing you highlights from our recently concluded Delhi Springboard. Joining me for a panel discussion are Saurabh Sanyal, Secretary General ASSOCHAM, Geetika Dayal, Director General TIE Delhi-NCR, Nikhil Agarwal, President CJ Darcl Logistics, and Eklavya Gupta, co-founder Recur Club. We are here in the city of Delhi, and this is where policies are formed, reforms are debated. So I want to kick this off with a common question to all my panelists. Say if you had a superpower to make a change overnight for small businesses, what would that be and why?
If I compare 20 years back, I would say that it was very, very difficult to start a business. You had to go to 49 different places, get licenses for just the land. Because there will be an environmental clearance, there will be a forest clearance, there will be a sub-sub clearance to that, and there will be so many clearances to follow. But today, let me tell you, 42,000 compliances have been reduced to zero. And today, a company or an expat who comes and lands in Delhi can open a business within 15 days. That is the kind of speed, that is the kind of resilience, and that is the kind of ease of doing business that is happening today in India. And we were the 142nd rank in the world ease of doing business when we started in 2010, 12, and thereafter we came to 63rd position in 2019. Now the World Bank, after 2020, they stopped indexing the ease of doing business. But if it had continued, I would presume that we would be the 25th in ease of doing business in the world. We are aspiring for becoming the third largest economy. So all this cannot happen without ease of doing business. So that is my word as a starting point.
Sure. So ease of doing business is what you would like to perhaps improve. That's what I understand.
Of course.
Yeah.
It is a way. It's a dynamic process, and it will continue to improve each year.
So Nikhil, similar question to you. What is that one change you would like to implement? That could change the way small businesses function today.
I would like to build on to what Sir said. If India would probably be ranked number 25, we should be ranked number 1, right? And still, I think that journey from 25 to 1 still requires a lot of push, right? And I would probably would ask for silence means yes. I often see, and I've experienced it myself, that even when we go on to start the business, there is a long queue that an entrepreneur has to still wait for, multiple departments. While Sir said a lot has been reduced, but I think that there is still a lot more that can be reduced. Government should proactively work towards granting that power to them that, we will come to your table to solve everything for you. You do what you do best, we will do our bit and make it faster.
Sure. Eklavya, over to you.
Capital makes or breaks, a company. In India, we have very smart people, promoters, founders, smart minds, brains, innovation. But while there have been a lot of initiatives, on doing collateral-free lending across, but still the extent to which it is available today can be significantly improved, right? Obviously, there are nuances to it. But I think lack of uncollateralized capital at the right time, to the right scale to companies, and faster is a significant game changer in my view.
When I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs on my show, absolutely, ease of doing business has improved. Things have improved on ground, but, they still talk about how compliance is still very complex. So I want to know from ASSOCHAM's, point of view as well, from a policy perspective, what do you think are the bottlenecks or the challenges that are still facing MSMEs today?
So earlier there used to be a policy paralysis. That was a very common term. Today it is not so. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, there are beautiful policies which were earlier existing but not implemented. Today those policies, the same policies in a different casket has been put, but they are implemented on ground. Say for example, an MSME is trying to open his shop here. So he has to just go to the portal, register himself, give a nominal fees, and within 24 hours or 36 hours, he gets an answer. This is physically, practically happening on ground, and I've seen it in ASSOCHAM, where we are hand-holding the SMEs for financial inclusion as well as for opening up businesses. The 9 FTAs which have happened today is a result of ease of doing business. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. With 38 countries, you have signed a business deal which is zero zero excise duty and zero tariffs. So where else this can happen other than India?
Absolutely, and I think you're right. The right kind of environment, the policies have really sort of empowered the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And Geetika, I'd like to know from your perspective as well. Since at TIE you definitely deal with a lot of entrepreneurs, you meet a lot of startup founders, MSMEs. How has the definition of entrepreneurship perhaps changed? What is today's entrepreneur like? What does he or she want beyond funding?
Entrepreneurship has always existed in India. It was in every part of the country. It was in the fabric. I think what has increased is the recognition for it. What has increased is the access for everybody to have more opportunity than what we had before. But if you were to look at a decade ago, a lot of the founders in our TIE conferences in the room would typically be clad in suits. They would be urban, English-speaking, perhaps with a lineage of corporate careers that they had left and are now starting their ventures. But when we have our cohorts now, we had a Samarth cohort or a Leap Ahead program. Now what that found was filled with entrepreneurs from all across the country. Many of them vernacular first, many of them solving very local problems, not necessarily replicating a typical Silicon Valley template. So that change has been very heartening to see. And what really works for them is very genuine, honest feedback about their business, because that can save them months and years of going in the wrong direction.
Sure, and I also feel like entrepreneurship today, it is no more just about an idea or perhaps not even the founder himself, but it is about, getting a product across to markets, to the right customers, which brings me to you, Nikhil. When we talk about logistics, right, what sort of a role do you think it really plays, efficient logistics, in helping MSMEs connect to their customers, across the board, across markets?
Logistics is the backbone, right? Any manufacturing facility, large or small, need a streamlined logistics solution that is to be there. I think what's really needed is trust, that MSME or SME should trust the ecosystem, look for the right player, right partner who could do across. 3PL often generally gets confused with that it's going to be very expensive, right? Largely because we had the likes of DHL and the global players giving those services. Yeah. To mostly again to MNCs. So, but that's not the case now, right? We have so many Indian logistics system and companies who are giving those services, everything under one umbrella, with the right kind of technology which could enable the promoters or entrepreneurs to see everything on their dashboard. And then, that really brings the efficiency as well as cost to the right level, where that enables them to compete with the large organizations.
Sure. Eklavya, coming to you now at Recur Club, you are solving one of the biggest pain points for MSMEs, that is managing cash flow and access to capital. Tell me, when you decided to, start this company, what was the problem that you saw in the market, which you thought that, okay, this one needs to be solved?
There are 2 or 3 critical problems that we started Recur to solve. One was the time in which that capital can be made available. Transparency and knowledge communication to those promoters and founders with the right intent. Right. There's a lot of mis-selling in lending that happens. That we believe is one of the biggest problems. So getting the right structures, debt structures to the companies at the right time, and which is more transparent, not human-driven, removes bias. So transparency would be second, is what we, want to solve for. And third was just advising other than just capital taking. So not force-fitting, but also advising what is the right structure and not just push selling. So those are the 3 critical things that we are focused on, and only technology can solve that, we truly believe.
Sure, and we'll speak about technology in a bit. But Mr. Saurabh, I'm going to come to you now. Just a couple of days back, there was a bill passed, an amended bill for MSMEs to address another pain point, which is delayed payments. What is your take on this? How do you think this is going to be a game changer for MSMEs?
Yeah, actually, that is really a big pain point. As per the MSME, that's 7.37 crores of SMEs. The growth engine of our country. And not only our country, I've been visiting countries, large number of them in the very recent past with the Honorable CIM and with the President of India. And all the SMEs we found have the same problem. It is not only Indians. It is the SMEs across the world have a payment issue. Let me tell you, the 45 days cycle which has to work does not work at all. Especially with the DPS, with the PSUs and DPSUs, it is really a hard task for an MSME to get the money out. And this TREADS has become a very successful tool. There is a need to, do this rapid reform in the government of India and state governments to provide these MSMEs a hand-holding, and it is very much desirable that this system should be given a limitation that beyond 3 limit, it's a deemed approval. Because timelines are very important and MSME has to, he's spending money. He cannot give his EMD and security deposit to 10 different, PSUs or government agencies. Because his working capital is lost. There is a dire need of the cost of doing business and the release of funds to the MSMEs. And it should be made, I would go to an extent that it should be a penalization of the person who's not paying the SMEs.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 14, co-powered by Star Health Insurance. You're watching highlights from our recently concluded Delhi Springboard.
So shifting gears a bit, and let's just talk about technology too. And artificial intelligence is impacting sectors across the board. But for small businesses who do not have like massive budgets or like a huge technology, like a tech team, like larger corporates, how do you think they can implement technology and AI, without spending significantly?
We are all sitting in an age where AI adoption is no longer a choice. It has to be something that is part of people's lives and businesses. It is obviously something that concerns founders a lot. We recently had a Founder 101 AI edition. And we suddenly found a great amount of relief among the founders when the experts over there said that every business does not need to become an AI business. What you need to start with is automate with AI at least one aspect of your business which is not doing great right now. Pick some of those most repetitive kind of tasks. What that will do is, start you on that journey of AI without waiting to build that 5-year roadmap.
Sure. Eklavya, just sticking to, you mentioned technology. So just elaborate for us, how do you think lenders can perhaps leverage technology to help improve, access to capital for small businesses, especially those who may not have a long credit history?
That is where technology is helping a lot. There are a lot of data points available. Like we at Recur have, integrated with probably thousands of data points to create like a single click, financial models for the SME, so that there is no, leniency to risk, but still you get that capital. Thanks to AI, a lot of reconciliations between, financials, GST, banking is very easy. So all of that tied in together, which our AI product also does, and we work with a lot of lenders, as you rightly said. They are now relying to, work faster and distribute credit to SMEs a lot faster. That was not possible earlier, right? Like you used to take days to just evaluate and change your priorities, etc. So capital can be disbursed up to, let's say, 1 crore we disburse, or up to 2 crores we disburse within 2-3 days itself because of technology. It used to take a lot of time, right?
All right. Nikhil, I also want to know your take on this. How do you think technology has impacted your industry? Of course, for MSMEs who are watching this as well, without spending a lot, without significantly increasing costs, how can they perhaps leverage the logistics sector, the network, to also get their products across markets?
often so, whenever we, speak to our clients, it's a price war, right? Everybody's looking for a per kg price or a per ton price. Technology is never looked at, right? Which particular vendor is a technology-first vendor who could integrate with your own systems, right? And if you do that, I believe you don't really need to invest into technology when it comes to logistics spend of yours, right? You just need a right partner, right vendor. And this is given that if a company who has already invested enough into technology would also be price sensitive and price competitive. So that's the right way to do it. But I hope if people can start looking at technology capabilities of their logistics vendors while assessing them and giving them the contract, it would help a lot.
Sure. So let's bring back the focus to Delhi. Say an entrepreneur in Delhi is watching this, and I want this, I want to open this up for all my panelists. Say they want to start up in the city of Delhi. What should the first step be? What are some of the do's and don'ts? Whose doors they can knock at? What sort of support they can expect?
I would say he should straight away come to ASSOCHAM, the Chamber of Commerce, which will handhold him and guide him, and also provide him all the alternatives of opening and business as fast as in 24 hours. We'll also connect them to the banks and NBFCs, and he will have a rollicking, absolutely rocking time.
Fantastic.
This is my...
Fantastic. Nikhil?
I think if somebody is trying to think of an idea or a problem to solve, I think somebody can work on our environment and the emissions in Delhi. I think that would be great help, right? And I think every bit of work that is being done in Delhi can contribute something in a better environment that we are living in and the air that's, we are all breathing in. So that should be helpful.
Okay. Eklavya?
I think obviously I'll say Recur because we have mentored around 5,000 founders, startups for the last 4 years to grow their business. So definitely that becomes one of the obvious choice. But one important thing, when you start, have a clarity on your business vision, and how at least going in you think it will turn out for the next 3 years. And unless you are very clear on what you want to do, others can only label you. So have that grit and clarity before you want to start and go and ask for help.
I think it's very important for founders to think about what problem they're trying to solve. Has it been solved before? If yes, then are they solving it in a different manner or a better manner? They have to have the right reasons for starting it in terms of their journey. At the same time, there is a lot of information, support, access available now. They have to be smart enough to be able to get access to it, to use it. Sometimes we find founders also very deeply married to their idea where they're not willing to make changes as might be required. They have to get advice, but then obviously go by what they believe is right for them to do. But they have to obviously have the right idea. And once they've been to ASSOCHAM and they've realized that the road to TIE is not far away, where our doors are always open, most welcome.
Do you think there are certain areas they perhaps need to work on, like perhaps talent, perhaps getting the right product or, even branding for that matter? 45%
of Indian exports are on the back of MSMEs. If you compare that, I think in the US it's about 25% companies that are exporting who have less than 100 employees. So the weight of Indian exports is already being carried on the back of MSMEs. It's not that they should go global. They are already global. What we need to do is to make that journey better. So they need to go in for, let's say, certifying for quality at a much earlier stage rather than waiting for their customer to ask for it. They need to probably be looking at more digital-first access to trade opportunities. And most importantly, they should not be depending on one single overseas buyer. The weight, like I said, of MSMEs carrying the export burden is there. We now need to spread that to a wider geography, a wider customer base, so that nothing can, shake them. They are establishing themselves on solid foundations.
Similar question to you, Nikhil. What needs to be done to plug more MSMEs and startups into the global supply chain? How can they become more globally competitive, perhaps?
It is technology. I think that layer could really, help them flourish. Having right sort of partnerships in the global setups, right? Partners in the Europe, Africa, or America, and then, if you can connect them through a good digital interface so that, the entire documentation and sir spoke about finance also, the Threads as a platform has come up really well, right? So all these things are really tying up well. I think India is already doing very good. Infra, which was one of the biggest challenge for Indian exporters, because, we are generally always competing with China, which, on scale and infra always has been better than India, but India has done tremendous work in that space. We have so many ports now, the dedicated rail corridors, the highways are improving. So, the logistics cost to GDP has already come down, which really directly impacts, the entire export pricing. So I think India is at the right place. MSMEs are already doing fantastic, and the government is doing very good to support all of it.
Sure, absolutely. And as we are wrapping up this fantastic discussion, I have one more common question to each one of you. As you already know, we are living in times of volatility. There are a lot of macroeconomic challenges. One piece of advice that you'd like to give all the viewers of our show today, and also the entrepreneurs in the audiences, in terms of how they can, build resilient businesses, while also navigating these uncertain times that we are living in.
I would suggest to all the entrepreneurs, all the MSMEs and all the startups who are there in town today, that they should utilize the opportunities which are available. There are plethora of, technology, plethora of funding agencies, plethora of chambers of commerce, associations. They can latch on to ASSOCHAM or to CII or to FICCI. They will get a very good briefing and hand-holding. They will know, even if they do not have a business plan, we will create a business plan for them according to their acumen. And we'll give it to them on a platter. They can decide on that, or they will have multiple options of choosing a business. There are plethora of reforms which have been done by the Government of India, the Ministry of Commerce. So there's nothing to worry about, and you should start your own business.
Sure. Nikhil, similar question to you, because today even your trade routes and supply chains are getting disrupted. So what would your advice be to entrepreneurs?
One is sustainability, right? If you're creating a sustainable organization, right, it generally would most likely come victorious out of the challenges that, we are all going through, because then you try and pinpoint every sort of challenges that your business can face. Second, I would say, is pivoting, right? If the business that you are, you're set to start faces challenges, regulatory hurdles, you should be agile enough to pivot and transform yourself into some other opportunity that you've learned during this process, right? And third is, I think, in the last 5 years, the amount of challenges and the world that, the wars that have been coming and the turmoils that we are all going through, right? You need to have, the problem that you're solving should be unique, right? Ma'am also pointed out. If you have really set out yourself to solve a problem, most likely you will not face those challenges that, we've been going through in the last 5-6 years.
Sustainability, agility, and having a unique problem to solve. Great. Eklavya?
I would say cash flow. In any business, cash flow is king. So plan plan ahead, plan properly. Give yourself time, right? And room to actually maneuver and do pivot, right? As rightly mentioned. But if you don't have cash flows, you will take, hasty decisions and could take wrong decisions. As an entrepreneur, believe in yourself and, plan way ahead in time and believe in cash flows. Definitely everyone will succeed.
Sure. Geetika, I'll let you have the last word.
Thank you. Sounds right. The woman should have the last word, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
But no, all valid points made. So I think nothing much to add beyond that, except what I would say is that, in a lot of the conversations that we have, in some form or the other, young founders end up asking, when will this uncertainty end, which is part of a founder's life? And the honest answer is that the uncertainty really doesn't ever end. The nature of uncertainty changes. And I think from a founder's perspective, it's important for them to not wait for the ground to stop shaking. It will never stop. But for them to build something that will withstand a shaky ground. And I think one of the important things that we very strongly believe at TIE is the power of mentorship. So the opportunity to actually learn and get mentored and take as much benefit of that as possible, because it is a hard journey anyway. So if there's anything that can help you in that journey to reach success faster, we should embrace it with open hands.
Fantastic. I think this was a very insightful discussion. I'm sure our entrepreneurs will have a lot to take away. Thank you so much for being here today at the ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow Delhi Springboard. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 14, co-powered by Star Health Insurance. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.